Hi there, my name is Kendrick, and today I get to interview Savannah. So, Savannah, welcome.
Hi.
So, Savannah, can you please tell us your full type?
I am an ESFJ, double feminine, Fe-Si, blast play, consume, sleep, number two.
Gotcha. And what did you think and how did you feel when you got your results back?
I was surprised because out of all my MBTI experimenting, I have never gotten ESFJ before. And so that was a shocker to me. And I but once I heard the reasoning why, I kind of processed it and then was like, oh, there was those few times that I was messing around with the ops uh elimination tool and did kind of come up with that, but I was like, yeah, that's not me. But I can see it. I can see it. I actually agree with the type.
Gotcha. And then I'm going to be asking you a lot about your animals and social type. Your social type is especially interesting to me because you are a two, and I don't think I've interviewed an ESFJ that is a social type two. So this is going to be the first.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I could be wrong. I just maybe they haven't gotten their social type back yet when I interviewed them in the past. But
Mhm.
let's start with your animals first, though. Your first animal is Blast, and it's SF Blast, right? And it's also double feminine, so it's not going to be the most aggressive SF Blast there could be. It's actually the softest, most friendliest, most gentle, kind of
Yeah.
like a nudge to get the tribe to behave properly. But like it's more like a friendly nudge, like hey, you stop doing that kind of deal, you know? But I want to hear from your experience. Like how do you use that SF blast of yours? You know?
Um, that's a good question. I kind of keep the niceness reserved for certain situations. Like if I'm trying to give someone, a piece of advice and they're just really just being hard-headed about making terrible decisions, of course it's always unsolicited advice. But I kind of like incorporate that, but also kind of be firm and direct about speaking how I speak to people when I'm trying to deliver certain information.
Okay, let's talk about unsolicited advice. So I am guilty of that when I was young. Um,
Yeah.
I remember I said it to a classmate of mine when I was young and still going to college. And then later on, she called me a meddler, and that really hurt my feelings. And I stopped.
Yeah.
It was a good thing that she called me out because, like, I stopped doing it since. So sometimes you need to have like experience to cut it out, right? Otherwise, you won't stop doing it, right? So, um, how are you with that unsolicited advice kind of thing? Because it's kind of hard as like a DE, you want to help other people.
Yeah.
At the same time, they didn't ask for that help, so maybe you shouldn't give them advice unless they actually ask for it, or maybe ask them for permission first before you give them the advice.
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I'll say, "Hey, can I just be really direct with you here for a second?" You know? And usually I don't think I've had anyone say no. Probably out of politeness. But yeah, I'll ask. It kind of really depends on the situation, right? If it's like someone that I really care about that's actively, doing things that's just really going to ruin their life, or decision making that's really just terrible. Um, in general, terrible, not my opinion, terrible. But then I'll just say it. I'll be like, hey, listen, I want the best for you. Okay, here's what you're doing, and here's what you need to do instead. Because if you keep down this path, all these things that you are working for are going to be out the door, right? So,
Oh, interesting. And
yeah.
what kind of thing would they be doing that would make them go out of the door? Like,
So if I had, say, if I had a friend, right, who was saying, oh, I want to, I don't know, I want to buy a house, right, or something, um but every extra dollar they get is on goes to, I don't know, something insane, like, I I just pick. There's a lot of things that you sometimes have to sacrifice to, to buy a house, on average. Um, and it's just sort of like just some I don't want to call it common sense advice, but just maybe offering a perspective about the situation that they can't see. And I think I do that because I also am the same way. If I am making a decision that is going to be really impactful, I will ask advice and I will just say, hey, here's the situation, and I just kind of want to see what your perception of it is. Um, so that way, maybe I can process and intake a way of looking at it that I'm just not aware of, because I can only see my perception of things.
Right. So it sounds like you're giving people double observer advice because that's your superpower,
Yeah.
gathering and
Uh-huh.
organizing function in the middle. And maybe it sounds like you have an EP friend who's kind of going out of control with not controlling their finances, so they can't achieve their goal of being a homeowner because of that out of controlness.
Right.
So
Right.
um so that's kind of where you step in, which I think is awesome. Ever since I learned about OPS, like when my double observer friend tells me about anything things related, I do take them seriously because
Hmm.
you guys have it. You guys have those in the middle. So you guys would know more than me.
Yeah.
I cannot say that I know more because you guys are more balanced with that, right?
Right. Yeah, and I think it's just good to, good advice is good advice, even if it came from someone who I really didn't like, I mean, good advice is good advice, right?
Right, right. But I am curious though for you. So you're getting advice from someone, but you still have that masculine TI at the bottom. So are you
Hmm.
actually gonna take what they say into consideration, or are you gonna be like, oh, you know what, my masculine TI thinks it's wrong. I think I'm gonna follow what I want to do.
You know, you know what? I always reserve the right to do what I want to do, and I end up doing what I want to do 98% of the time anyway. But but if I ask someone advice, it's because I have explored all the avenues that I can think of. And a lot of times the advice that I'll receive is things I've already looked into. And eh, depending on the person, I may kind of preload it with, here's what I'm asking you, and here is all the things I've looked into, and here's what I found. So do you have anything other than those things to maybe tell me that I'm not aware of? Um, but yeah, I mean, I'll listen and I'll process it, and if it's relevant, then I will incorporate it, and if not, then I'll just like, okay, yeah, thanks. I'll see.
Oh, I see. I guess
Yeah.
that makes you like the ultimate info dump person because you're not consuming the information and also blasting it. You're also using play to ask the tribe. So you're like filling as much gaps as you can in terms of like having the most perfect decision that you could have.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Because I really want to make the best the best decision possible. And how do you do that other with information,
Yeah, right. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Um, what's interesting about your type is you have a super decider um decider type.
Mhm.
Because you have blast and consume in the middle, which are observer animals, you could say. And then
Yeah.
your first, and not sorry, yeah, not in the middle, but like your first animal and your third one is like observer animals, right? The blast and the consume.
Mhm.
Then your second animal is play, which is like a decider animal. And then your fourth one is sleep, which is also a decider animal. So it almost feels like you will have extra amount of people problems compared to the
Yeah.
other types that could be similar to you. Uh,
Uh-huh.
just because of that, how do you feel about that? Like, would you say that the people problem thing can be quite a problem, like a huge problem for you, or is it something that you feel like you've kind of have under wraps, like you have it kept at bay, so it doesn't like get in the way of your life?
Um, I think it kind of I think it feels like it cycles. I'll have people problems. People are always my problem. Firstly, let me say that. But it'll kind of swing where I'll have an up an uproar of people problems for, I don't know, a month or 2 or 3. And then I'll be in a mode where I'm like, okay, let me go knock all these fires out, like, let me do all this stuff to help them. And then when I don't see any real progress from the effort that I've put in, I'll kind of just back away. And I was like, listen, people have to live their lives. They have to learn their lessons. And that's what I tell myself in my head. um and yeah, it just comes and goes that way. It's never consistent. But it does tend to come from a lot of the same people.
Oh, I see. So the repeat offenders are the same
Yes.
individuals.
Right. And sometimes I just have to, and sometimes it gets to be so much where I just have to like rent a cabin and just go be alone. Just like, don't talk to me. 2 days, I don't want to hear anything from anyone. Just you know, the whole time I'm there, I'm thinking about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're still like a prisoner of your mind, essentially, kind of.
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
frustrating.
I
That's
can't get away
frustrating.
from it.
Yeah. Uh, would you say your arch nemesis then would be someone that is like an IP type, because like being very selfish? Um,
Um, I really can't say. I really don't know. Everything I thought I knew about typing is completely wrong until I found ops, right? And then so I always just be like, "Oh, I think my friend so and so is an ISTP or whatever." And now I'm just like, when you ask that question, that's immediately who I thought about. Um, and if that's the case, I would say yes, if that's an accurate typing of that particular person.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've always seen EJs and IPs to be like best friends and mortal enemies kind of deal, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And yes, my best friend. Yes.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so fascinating. And I guess because you guys speak the same language, having
hmm
decider talk being what you latch into as like,
Yeah.
kind of like your eyes kind of widen when you hear like those people. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, geez, like you're like sucked in. But then when you have like observer kind of discussion, it's kind of like
hmm
on boring. Like this is, let's keep this at a limit. Uh,
Right. Right.
yeah, because like that's how I feel sometimes when I have decider friends and they're talking about their people.
hmm
This again? Why haven't you resolved this already? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, granted, like that's why we have these types, right? Because now we're all stuck in something, and
Right.
that's how we get type is because there is that recurring problem that won't go away.
hmm
So, and that's where we're stuck. So deciders get stuck with people, while observers get stuck with things, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. And it's, one of the things that really is just a huge pet peeve of mine is when someone asks me the same question over and over again about how to fix a problem.
yeah,
And I'm like, over like a period of 6 months or something, they asked me like for, I'm like, we literally just talked about this. And you're still not doing the things that you should be doing to fix this. Do you understand that this is going to keep coming back around?
right. I wonder what their type is now. That person that's
Yeah,
asking.
I wonder too. Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out.
I'm curious. Is it like it? Yeah, I'm curious. Maybe it's an EP or something. I don't know. Like, um,
Possibly. She does remind me a lot of like ISTP, kind of like very, like kind of more stoic, kind of just the whole vibe of that. So I mean, she could be, but who knows?
right. Um, I eventually want to get to your last animal. I think that's going to be the most
hmm
interesting to discuss. But let's go over your second animal and your third animal. And we can talk about it kind of at the same time.
Sure.
Let's start with the second one first. NF play, double activated NF play. Um,
hmm
this is got funny. This is a funny animal because I've seen people with NF play set traps for their friends, and it's kind of like
Yeah.
it's like an emotional trap, usually. And then the whole purpose is to get like a big emotional outburst in the end, and it's kind of like ha ha funny, kind of. I don't know if you do that because you are like an OI, but I don't. But I've seen OI people do this traps all the time as well. So, I can see
Yeah.
doing it to someone that you feel comfortable doing it to. Um, so I can't think of any example off the top of my head, but you
I can tell you something I do. I don't know if it would fall in line with it, but uh, I'll kind of play devil's advocate, even if it's not something I really believe. So like if a friend of mine says, "Oh, I don't know, I believe this thing and here's all these reasons why," and I'm like, okay. I mean, even if I agree with them, I'll be like, okay, but how would you feel if that was done to you? What would what would your reaction, the implications on your life be if the thing that you say you're okay with, you were on the receiving end of it? You know, that's I don't know if that falls in line with that sort of with that sort of thing, but that's something I do just to kind of like maybe open a mind, right? Just kind of open I don't know, reference of thinking.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. It sounds like you're doing it more in a more serious way because it's because you're info dumb. I
Oh yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, because info dumps are more serious than the energy dumps, right? The energy dumps are more goofy. So,
Yeah.
like like a few years ago, I interviewed this girl. She was an ISFJ, and she said the way she kind of gets emotional reaction out of people is if people go up to her and be like, "Hey, how's your day going?" She'll purposely say, "It's terrible," and she'll say with like a straight face, right? Just to like
Yes.
get them to like, huh? Kind of like,
Yeah, yeah. Say something that's not expected to kind of get like a reaction.
yeah,
Like, wait, what?
yeah. And she's laughing inside, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. I know what you mean now. Yeah, that's yeah, I've done that. I'm guilty.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess depends the time and place, or how.
Yeah. I think I did that the other day. I'm trying to remember what exactly happened, but um someone said, "Oh, oh, I think we're talking about another person," and they said something like, "Oh, did so and so get out of that, I don't know, situation?" And I said, "No, no, she decided to not only stay in it but double down and basically plant even more seeds in this terrible situation." And they're like, "Really?" I'm like, "No."
I see. I see. That's where
But
you're
more in
going.
a joking way, to where they can tell I'm joking.
Right.
I've been told that when I think I'm um being more emotionally expressive, that it's not really coming across. Which is ironic because that's one of my complaints about some of the people in my life. It's like, yeah, you say this, but it's not coming across that way. I
Yeah.
think it's really funny how our pet peeves and complaints are also things that we do usually.
Right. No, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
projection is a huge thing for everyone.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. Um, I want to ask you about your consume. Your consume is double masculine, anti-consume, right? And
Mhm.
from what I know about anti-consume, it's usually used to find solutions to a problem. So you're specifically using the consume for troubleshooting or problem solving, and
Right.
you get that solution from consume essentially, right? So how do you personally use that anti-consume of yours? And because it's double masculine, it's gonna be extra aggressive at the same time, so
Yeah.
how do you see yourself, approaching that specific animal?
Um, Problem solving especially. I am really good at problem solving. I can solve problems quickly and very efficiently. I'm actually in the middle of setting up a business that provides that service to other companies. I'm sorry, I have a dog. Companies and entrepreneurs to kind of like business process improvement and along the some other services along those lines, because like I can walk into a place and I can just look at it, I mean, without really trying, and just say, okay, here's all the things that can be fixed with either this website, this process, the building, the aesthetics, like how it looks in here, to really improve your business, your clientele. And that I mean, the problem solving capabilities definitely come in handy with almost everything, because it's like my mind processes things very, very quickly, and it kind of trying to think of like a good visual example too. to explain it. It's kind of like it intakes a problem, and then it's like, okay, possible solutions, like, line up all the solutions, go through them quickly, like, why would this work? Why wouldn't this work? Right. And the thing that is the most efficient usually is, if it's quality and efficient, is the best balance.
I think that sounds like you're using your masculine NE in that situation.
Oh,
Yeah, because I was thinking about like when you were saying how you're finding the solution so quickly.
oh.
Uh, and then I remember he made a video about people with masculine NE, and he didn't believe that you guys can see all these different pathways so quickly because he can't see it, right? But for you, it's
Right.
like the masculine NE is really good at like aggressively seeing all the different pathways and seeing which is the best
Hmm.
path to take.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that's kind of like what you're doing. And then the T part, the TI is like uh the problem solving aspect of it. So
Right.
yeah, right.
Right. And I don't know if this is related to that or not, but I think it also, when I think that way, it's almost like I have to put myself in so I like assess the problem and be like, is this problem solved with logic or more on the emotion side? And then I'll say, okay, if it's more logic and reason based, of course, I'm like, it's almost kind of like flipping a switch, I want to say, to, okay, let me just flip over to the logic side and approach this with all of the logical solutions, right? And it's kind of like, depending on the situation, that's what mode I'll put my mind in and then approach it that way.
Um, I also want to ask you how your social type 2 applies to what you're talking about also, because you're starting a business, right? And number twos are
Yeah,
known
yeah.
for being very entrepreneurial. And they typed someone long time ago, like in the early days of OPS, that was also ESFJ. And let me see if I can look it up actually. Her name is Jessica, How to ADHD. I don't know if you've heard of her.
Oh yeah, I've watched those videos on yeah, ops.
Yeah, is she the same type as you?
I think so. I'm
Yes.
pretty sure she is. Yeah.
Yeah, she's blast, play, consume, sleep. Right. Okay, there you go. I see
Mhm.
it now. And she has ADHD, so I don't know if you have it or not, but
I wondered, I'm like, is this my personality type or do I have ADHD before I even saw that video or got typed
yeah.
in?
I honestly feel everyone with extrovert intuition has ADHD, or at least has it in a savior
Yes,
in
I
street.
I I tend to agree with that.
Yeah.
It can come
Um,
in handy sometimes. I mean, but it's also really detrimental other times as well.
you know what? I've always seen ADHD as a superpower personally, because
Hmm.
I have it. I have the combined type ADHD, so I have both
Oh.
hyperactive inattentive, which makes sense,
Mhm.
being like play blast on the front end and consume sleep on the back end, so
Yeah.
yeah, so that's like the recipe for hyperactive play blast, and then consume sleep is inattentive. Right? So it's kind of crazy how the type can already like predict that you're gonna have like all this quote unquote psychological disorder. I actually don't think it's a disorder, honestly. I think it's just like I just think it's like we live in a world where it's not as you know it's like you're working in an environment where it's not suitable, for
Hmm.
to have this, but back in the days when we were
Right.
cavemans, I think it was actually a good thing, having ADHD. Um,
True. True, true. I believe that.
yeah. But anyways, I think it's a superpower because I think it makes you super creative, but it's
Hmm.
bad because then you can't focus, right? So it
There's that part, yeah.
yeah. Do you see yourself struggling with that or not so much?
I do. I do struggle with that. I tend to do better when I have a lot of things to do. Like if my day is packed to the brim of things to do, even if they're things that I'm definitely not interested in, I don't want to do, I'll still get them done. But if I have only one or two things to do a day, I'll procrastinate, no matter how important they are. I'll procrastinate and a day, two, three will go by. So it's kind of like I almost have to keep myself in I don't want to say hyper vigilant, but a hyper awareness kind of mind state to be super productive, because if I let my mind relax too much, it'll go too far to the extreme and not want to do anything, and I'm just like watching TV like yeah.
Right.
So Yeah, so it's kind of like that this way or this way, and it's really hard for me to find a balance in the middle and be consistent with it.
Right, right. No, I can relate to what you're saying. Like you almost
Yeah.
have to be in like a constantly overwhelmed, otherwise you can't function.
Yes,
It's, it's,
yes,
it's
yes.
weird. Yeah, it's so weird, you know. Like you would think that having only one thing to do is like the best situation, but actually,
Right.
I especially for us sleep last people, like no,
Hmm.
no, that doesn't work for us. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I did talk to Dave about this actually. It was really interesting. When I interviewed him, um,
Hmm.
like I think a month ago, and he said, "Hey, when you're sleep last, you gotta sleep last." That's what he said, right? He's like, if you have
Hmm.
like 3 or 4 days, like 12-hour days, and then you crash for like the next few days, he's like, that's what you gotta do. That's how you're
Yeah.
built, and that's what you gotta do. And there's nothing wrong with that, because because everyone's different, right? Like if you're energy dom, you're gonna work like 4 hours, and then you take some break, and then you work again, and
Yeah. I
but
wish I could do that. That seems reasonable and like,
right,
normal, but I can't
no.
do that.
No, no, the sleep last people, we can't do that. No,
Right.
it doesn't work for us. It's weird. It's like yeah, I've tried doing it. I'm like, yeah, I do agree with you where it's like, does it not make more sense to like chill out in between? And
Right. Yeah.
no, doesn't work. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's not, yeah, don't even bother with that. So which leads us to the last question I have in terms of animals. ST sleep. Okay. So ST sleep is a huge one. I think this is one of the biggest things I've learned in OPS actually. Like you guys, your quadra, so the ESFJs, ISFJs, ENTPs, and INTPs, that ST sleep is insane. It's like Dave said in my interview with him, it is the hardest sleep animal to have.
Mm,
Absolute hardest. He actually said that. Um, like
right.
you can't be satisfied with yourself. There's too many like rules that you have to fulfill to be satisfied, which is kind of difficult.
Right.
Um, so well, let's go over the different parts of that. The first one, and this one is like the biggest eye opener once I figured out like this is the exact word to describe it. Because I talked to some coworkers at work and they don't believe in typing. But when I told them, oh, your identity is tied to this, they're like, what? I've never heard anyone say that before, but it makes perfect sense. And like, guys, I have an ESFJ coworker, same type as you, except MF, I think, blast, play, consume, sleep. Uh,
Mhm.
and I said, your identity is tied to competence. He said, I've never heard anyone say that before, but that makes the most sense. So ST is competence essentially, right? So can you share,
Mhm.
it's your last animal, so I feel like that's going to be something that is going to be bugging you a lot, like that feeling of competence, like you're good at what you do. Uh,
Right.
and you can demonstrate that to yourself and to the tribe. And essentially that's how you feel seen also, is like when you're good at your work,
Mhm.
essentially. So how do you feel about that personally, like your identity being tied to
Um,
competence?
yeah, I absolutely want to be perceived as competent. Um, it's it definitely does something for me um if someone corrects me. Even though it may be warranted and nice or whatever, it definitely kind of is that little ping, like, outwardly, I was like, oh yeah, okay, okay. But inside, I'm like, oh my God, I look so dumb right now. Like I should have known that. How come I didn't know that? Did I know it and then forget that I know it? Like how just it's a whole disaster. But yeah, it's really important to me to be perceived as I don't need to be perceived as an expert, but someone who can be relied on to give accurate answers.
Right. The other things that I'm seeing that could impact that is your social type. So you're social type 2, and as a result, you are not a specialist at all. So, um, you know, in what area would you want to feel competent then, if not in an area where you can specialize in? And but you're not a specialist. You're a,
Yeah,
you're a
that's
general,
that's the problem.
right?
Yeah, I get into a lot of things. I've had like a career in cybersecurity for about 17 years now. Um, I I've started about 7 businesses. I'm going to start an eighth one, two of which I have, the rest have been sold off and years ago. Um, and it's really hard because I want to know a lot about a lot. And I wish I was, I don't know, like one of those people with super memory who could just process an encyclopedia or something and just like, oh, okay, now it's in here and I can speak on whatever someone may ask me. But um I try to kind of whittle it down, the subject areas in a way, like if someone's talking to me about something that I don't know, in order to keep me from feeling or coming across as incompetent, as it were, I will just be like, I don't know enough about that subject right now to have an opinion on it. And I'll just leave it at that. Um, but I think I've done a really good job kind of balancing what I say outward versus how I feel inward about certain situations to kind of save face, so I don't look dumb and I don't look like I'm BSing, just trying to, because I don't want to look like a BSer either.
Right.
Yeah, so that's yeah. So that's, I mean, it's always a balance. I'm always trying to, not tip the scales too far one way or the other, but it's always something I'm striving for, is just knowing more. And I really just like to learn different processes and about things, and it not just on the tech end of the spectrum, but also um I'm in my master's program right now for interior architecture and design. So it goes to both ends of the scales, right? Like hands-on physical things and also just mental workloads as well with technology and cybersecurity and all that.
I like your default answer that you give to people. It feels like it feels safe, but at the same time, it's also TI true. So it's
Right.
so you're not betraying yourself, which is good.
Hmm.
But at the same time, you also don't make yourself look bad. So it's yeah,
Right. It took
definitely.
me 30 years to figure that out.
Hey, better late than never, right? Uh,
Right.
and the other thing is, it does make perfect sense now that you are on number two because you keep collecting different skill set.
I
Uh,
do.
like you're so aggressive at it.
I'm
And
into everything. Like I have my photography page on Instagram.
yeah,
I have my interior architecture and design business I'm gonna start when this degree is done. I have my two undergrad degrees in IT, information systems, cybersecurity, kind of stuff.
yeah,
I mean, just everything. I just love to experience different things and learn, and then also kind of add them to my toolbox, so that way if I really want to just get out of cybersecurity, which I really do want to, it's just, it's too much sitting for me, too much, um then I can have other small things to fall back on while I'm building up something else bigger.
right.
Yeah, security,
So it sounds like your superpower is actually being a serial entrepreneur. Like that seems to be
I think so.
yeah, yeah, that seems to be what you're like good at and you're built for because you can't
I enjoy it.
yeah, you won't stop doing it. So it sounds
I
like
won't.
yeah, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing that you're aware of what you're into and you're pursuing it aggressively. I think that would give you like purpose in life. Something to
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's kind of nice to have that. Um,
Right.
I can see you being like a coach one day for like people who are like serial entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're like because you can actually back it up the fact that you've actually done it yourself. So
Right.
like the story for what's the word I'm looking for here? Like as an EJ, you want to help people, right? But then one of the pitfalls
Yes.
a lot of EJs fall into is you're giving people advice that you don't embody, right? But then in your case, you actually
Yes.
embody the serial entrepreneur, archetype. Like you are doing it. You are a serial entrepreneur. From the sound of it, you've done quite well as a serial entrepreneur, and it is feasible as a
Yeah.
career path. There are people who are built for this. So it sounds like you could be like the go-to person for this kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I enjoy it. I especially am looking forward to getting this business process improvement company off the ground. And because, my line of thinking, I just kind of came up with this one day, maybe like a couple months ago. It was like, people start businesses usually because they want to work for themselves. It's something they're passionate about, that they love, and whatever. But what they don't understand is that managing and administrating a business is a full-time job on its own. So then you either have to pick between administrating your business and hiring someone else to do something that you love, which defeats the purpose of you starting the business, or you have to work 24-hour days and do everything. So it's kind of like, I have learned a lot of tips and tricks of the trade over the years to make things faster, easier, more automated. And I definitely want to share that with other entrepreneurs, especially the smaller ones who start things not for money, but because they want to be happy.
Right.
And I'm like, if I can help them do that, then that will make me happy too. And it truly does. It really does.
Yeah, I think there's a huge demand for what you're talking about. Because like when you were saying that, I was like, oh,
Mhm.
yeah, I definitely have that
Yeah.
issue. Because like, it's like the
Hmm.
24/7 thing because
Yes.
I don't know how to delegate or create systems to automate certain things, so
Right.
it's definitely like there's like a bridge there that I feel like a lot of people get stuck in. So it's cool that you are aware of
Hmm.
how to bridge that because that's
Hmm.
something that is needed. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
that's cool. So okay, so I guess you wouldn't feel incompetent in a sense then because you are good at this thing. You're good at serial entrepreneurship. That's your thing.
Yeah, I'm good at it, but I always come across people who in the entrepreneur world that still know more than I know.
Yeah,
And when I do, I'm kind of like, wow, it's kind of like a, I don't know, a triple threat type of thing where it's like, okay, wow, that's cool. Okay, two, I want to know what you know, and three, we need to keep in contact so I can know what you know. And then four, how many other people know more than me and this other person knows? And where do I find them?
right, right.
Right? So LinkedIn.
Yeah. Oh my God. You are so different from like the social type 3 ESFJ that I've interviewed. So
Yeah.
it's so interesting how like that one social type just changes everything, despite
Right.
being like the exact same animals.
Hmm.
Um, what about your sexual modalities? How do you see that, you know, or how do you personally experience that, like being a tester and visual? So tester is like smell, right? So
Yeah.
and it's because it's SI, it's like your favorite smells, I guess, your favorite scents or tastes.
Hmm. Yes.
Um,
Candles.
candles.
I've bought a lot of things that just you know what? I think that smell in a really odd way has a huge impact on your mood, right? There's what is that, like, smell therapy or something? What's it called? Aromatherapy.
Yeah,
Um and yeah, it does for sure. I actually spend more time than I should in, like, Macy's at the perfume counter, just like, yeah, it smells good, but it's something's quite kind of off about it, and it'll bother me later. So I just smell all of them, and then I'll go to another store that has different ones,
yeah,
and then my house, has to smell a certain way, because the smell actually does affect my mood. Like a light and kind of floral or fruity smell just kind of gives a different energy and a different vibe than
yeah.
like a, crisp and clean Febreze type of smell.
Right.
So yeah, yeah, it's a huge thing.
Would
Weirdly enough.
would you say smell evokes memory for you also? Like
It
it brings you
does.
back? Yeah,
Right, right.
can you
It
talk about
does.
that?
I actually, so I actually have this trick that if I have to take like I don't know, a test, a cert for work or something, I will get, I don't know, lavender oil or some other smell that I may like, and I'll just put it on me so I can kind of smell it while I'm studying. And then when I go take the test, I'll do the same thing. And it kind of helps me remember some of the content that I learned, because I can kind of put myself in my mind back, almost like so I have like I don't know what it's called, but it's definitely like an inner monologue thing, but it's also very like, like watching a movie, kind of almost like it's very
Yeah.
detailed and like music, is a whole world in there. But I can kind of, if I smell it and I'm in the middle of a test, I can kind of like close my eyes and visually take myself back to what I was seeing on my screen when I was studying to help me, pass the test.
Yeah, that's super cool. And I think you're
Yeah.
doing it in conjunction with your visual also, because that's the
Right.
smell creates that visual image to you of, of you studying that thing, and doing it like the
It
perfect.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's crazy though is that thing that we talked about earlier, like the projection thing, because like I
Hmm.
think a lot of people tend to project their sexual modality onto other people as if like everyone also experiences the same thing. Because like
Hmm.
I know people that are like really into scents, and then for me, I'm like, there's no memory, zero memory from the smell, like nothing. It's just like I'm audio kinesthetic, so for me, the sound
Uh-huh.
provides the memory. Like I hear something, I'm like, and I'm brought back to that moment, right? Like let's say I
Hmm.
hear a certain song, and then I'm back to like when I was like a teenager, for example, like sit, I can even imagine exactly where I was,
Right.
So it's kind of cool how your sexual modality is the one that, stores your memory, and it's different for
That
everyone,
is, yeah.
you know?
It's very interesting.
Yeah. Um, what about the kinesthetic stuff? So if you are a tester, then kinesthetic would be like the lowest or the hardest. Do you have trouble with kinesthetic stuff then? Like in terms of like, the weight of something, or what's the word I'm looking for? Like you can like picture like a 3D uh sense of like parking is a good example. Like usually people with
Hmm.
sensory have trouble parking, right? Because they can't I guess feel out the space,
Right. I
her.
mean, I definitely have to repark my vehicle several times sometimes, depending on the space.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing I can think of with that. Yeah, I guess it's what is it like not really being able to have like what like spatial recognition kind of. Um, I you know what? I tend to bump into things a lot. I don't know if that's related. I'll bump into things or I won't look on the floor and I'll like almost trip over something that shouldn't
Yeah.
even be there, right? But it's there. Things like that, like kind of I don't know. I guess what bodily spatial awareness, I'm not really sure what the term is, but yeah, things like that.
I want to go back to your TI and SI. I was just thinking of something when we were talking about the sexual modality stuff. So I kind of want to bring it up to you, see what your version of this is. So for me, with my SIFI, I have my favorite objects, and like they make me happy, which is weird. Like why does an object make you happy? Well, I have SIFI, so that object is tied to my emotion, right? Like for example, I
Mm-hmm.
have like my favorite pen, and I'm like, if I'm writing with my favorite pen, I feel happy, even though it's a stupid pen, right?
That's
Um
nice.
or yeah, like sometimes I'm blending my morning smoothie with my Vitamix, and I'm like, oh, I love my Vitamix. I'm so happy. It's so being an observer is weird, right? Um, you know, and,
I
like
mean, I get it. I get it,
yeah. So like, but you have SITI, so like, what's happening for you there with your like go-to tools? What's happening? Do you have go-to tools or not really?
I have specific brands that I really like.
Yeah.
Not that I tend to stick with, and I tend to go to the same restaurants and get the same. Sometimes I'll get something else, but I usually get the same food. Um, but I mean things like those oh gosh, those blue Pilot pens. Like you take the cap off, it's like the super fine like blue ink. Like I have to have those pens.
Okay.
Like those pens make me happy, but it's not a particular pen, but it's knowing that the thing I'm getting ready to use has been completely vetted by me and definitely will work the way I want it to. Kind of like a set it and forget it. So if I keep getting these things that I know works, then my life will be a little easier.
Oh, I see. I see. You
Yeah.
you you've personally approved of them, like as
Right.
being the best tool. on the job.
Right, yes.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did notice that with TI people. Like it's so interesting with the TI-FE axis when it comes to gifting. Uh
Mm-hmm.
I noticed like if someone has FE, you give them like a fun gift, it's okay, no problem. But if you give them like a TI kind of gift,
Mm-hmm.
they are like really picky, really picky. And
Yeah.
could be up to the point of like they could be mean about it, like I don't like this, it's like it doesn't work for me, kind of deal, you know.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
It's rare that someone gives me a gift and I'm like, wow, I love this. I would totally buy this myself. But it does happen sometimes. It happened the other day and I was really shocked and I was like, wow, thank you so much. I truly, truly love this. And yeah, I'm never parting with it. So yeah, I know what you mean.
do you feel seen then when someone finds you like the perfect gift?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like, okay, you actually know me.
Yeah,
And that means a lot. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's good because then that tells you like which friend of yours is actually like paying attention to you,
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, oh, this person actually knows me. That's amazing. Oh my God, I can trust it.
Yeah.
I can trust this person,
Yeah.
because they're not just BSing,
Hmm.
Well, how do you feel about those FE kind of gifts? Like more of like a gag gift or like something just for fun, like nothing. Like
I mean, I think the fun gifts are great if it's sort of like a fun card game or something and we can play it together.
I see.
Um, but if it's something like a fake like hand buzzer, I'm like, okay, thanks, but what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, then it's just junk then.
Like I appreciate the effort. Don't do it again.
That's funny. Yeah. I like how you're so soft with that. Don't do it again though. It's like it's
Yeah.
because it's feminine FE, right? So it's so soft.
Yeah, I think I've actually been told that like the way I look versus how I come off when I say don't do it again is kind of like very in contrast with each other. So like, wait, are you joking or no? I can't tell.
Oh yeah,
Like,
but that's part of the
yeah.
fun probably
Because I
though.
don't literally look, like me, like don't do it again.
Yeah.
But I'm like, don't do it again.
Yeah.
It throws people off sometimes, so I have to kind of over explain, you know,
Oh, they don't know if you're serious or
the
not.
nuances. Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's
I
funny.
guess it doesn't line up.
Yeah. All right, so Savannah, I think I've asked you all the questions I have to ask. So the last two things I want to bring up then before we wrap up this interview. The first one
Mhm.
is since you have this platform to yourself right now, as we're doing this interview, what do you want people to know about you that we didn't touch on? Or is there a topic that we didn't touch on that you wish we talked about that you want to bring forth?
Yeah. Nothing I can really think of right this second. We did cover quite a bit.
Yeah,
So I just I kind of would like people to know that the ESFJ stereotype that's out there just really isn't it, right? It's completely wrong oftentimes. And even I was kind of stuck in that mind state of, oh, I can't be an ESFJ before I found ops because, you know, all of these traditional stereotype type of uh behavior, personality, and um you know, uh, I never really thought I could be because it was so almost like a fake, you
right,
know, like, oh, I'm this fake nice person just to get what I want out of you, and then all these emotional manipulations and it's kind of like, yeah, that's definitely not me. But in the ops world, their particular ESFJ is me. So
right.
I think the internet is filled with wrong information about personality types for sure.
I think the description of ESFJ that you mentioned, I think that's like one out of the 128 different kind of ESFJ. I think that do
Yes.
exist, but it's just one kind of ESFJ. It's not like
Right, right. And
like
they try to lump, every ESFJ into that one thing. And even a lot of YouTubers are on that bandwagon too. And I think it's really just misrepresentative and Yeah, I really support and appreciate what you and Dave and Shan are doing, because I think it really helps dispel the misinformation, and put some real truth, scientific method, hardcore facts out there that really can't be disputed too much. So I hope they continue to grow, and you know, and just set people straight.
Yeah, right. No, I think the coolest thing about like just seeing them type different ESFJs is seeing how
Hmm.
diverse you guys are in like the career path that you choose, right? Like I've seen ESFJs that are MMA fighters. I'm like, what? Like
Wow, really?
yeah, like his name is
That's
Chael
wild.
Sonnen. He's double masculine, ESFJ, blast play continuously, but double masculine version of you. I think he's also number
Wow.
two. Also, he's a serial entrepreneur.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, he has his scams, quote unquote scams, the number two scams that Dave likes to call. You know, but
Yeah,
this
yeah.
guy literally got in trouble with the law for having a scam. You know.
Yeah.
But he was a really good MMA fighter. Like he was really good, and you would not,
Hmm.
is people traditionally see ESFJs as more of like a softer type, but there's like a double
Right.
version of you guys who's
Right.
out there beating people up. Like uh
Right.
or Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan, right? The wrestler.
Yes.
Yeah, he's
Uh,
like an ESFJ also, double masculine also. So there's like the masculine version of the ESFJs and the more feminine version of the ESFJs.
hmm.
There's the ESFJs that is doing what you're doing, serial entrepreneur, and there's
Yeah.
ESFJs that are specialists, right? And then you have your traditional number four ESFJs that's just serving the tribe and enjoying having barbecues and doing all that stuff, right? So you have like a mix of different kinds of ESFJs, right? So
Right. Right. Yeah. And that kind of really threw me off, because I don't really consider myself feminine. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of in the middle somewhere, but I definitely feel more aggressive than what is the traditional feminine female type of perception. Um, and I've been told that as well. So I know that's not just in my head. So I was really shocked with the F and the ESFJ. Um,
yeah,
but when you mentioned career choices, I've outside of my entrepreneurship stuff and cybersecurity, I've done a lot just to try it. Like I've done accounting, like I did a long-term substitute teaching position for a while, and I loved it in middle school.
yeah,
Loved, loved, loved being a teacher, although it was exhausting. And when I finish my master's, once I get into practice with the architecture stuff, then I will um, probably try to teach at a graduate level some college courses about that too. So I just like to have my options, and yeah, and it's just keeps things interesting.
yeah. A lot of ESFJs surprisingly are accountants. I do see that clustering.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I've seen that
yeah.
clustering for sure.
I
And then
liked it because it was like no sort of policy interpretation. The numbers are the numbers, right? There's
right,
no disputing. Five is five.
right, right, 100%. Right, that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. And then teaching too, I think a lot of ESFJs are teachers because of
Hmm.
the NE especially makes you guys really good teachers because the thing that David Chan said, the problem with NI is you're not responsible for making sure other people understand the concept. But
Right.
when you have NE, so anyone that's in your quadra and my quadra,
Mhm.
we have NE, so we do feel responsible to make sure that other people understand the concept, you know,
Right. Yeah, even in my day-to-day life, if I'm talking with someone and they don't seem like they understand what I'm saying by a certain word, I'll just keep saying other versions of that word until they're like, "Oh."
yeah,
Like I'm trying to think of a good example. Um it was something like, do you know, like, I was just being, like, someone said I was just being I think I said I was just being facetious. And they looked at me like, "What?" And I said, joking. And they looked like they're like, "How does that?" I'm like, "I was just making fun of something serious." And like, "Oh, okay." It's kind of like I'll just keep repeating
right.
until like I see their face, like, "Okay, I see what she's saying."
Oh, right. So
Yeah,
until
that's helpful.
it clicks in.
Yeah, yeah. Like yeah, I noticed when you really kind of learn a person, like a friend or a spouse or whatever, And then you learn all their nuances and how they process information. I find myself saying the word information a lot in this, but how they process information.
Yeah.
And then you, especially if it's important or you need them to get on board with something, you say it to them in a way that they can receive information best. And that always just saves so much time with like arguments and disagreements and like, well, what do you mean? And I thought this. And it's kind of like, how can I say this? Where they'll be like immediately, oh, I see what you're saying. I
Right.
get it. Yeah. Very helpful. I've learned that.
You know what? I've always appreciated that because when I'm dealing with someone with NI, and I'm not shitting on NI people, obviously organizing the concept is super important. Someone has to do it. But
Right.
I do find with sometimes with the NI people, I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying. Can you explain to
Yes.
me that how I would get it? And they can't do it.
Same.
They can't do it. They can't do it. And it's not their fault because
Yeah.
they don't have any, right? So it's
Yeah.
so it can be a little bit challenging. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so then I'm left with no choice but to like seek out someone with NE to kind of translate to me what the other person is trying to explain to me,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, definitely for sure. I can see you being good at making people understand the concept. Um, all right, so Savannah, we'll wrap up the interview here. So
Okay.
we covered everything. So I appreciate you coming out, sharing
Yeah.
more
Thank you.
personal, and it's super cool. People will now see, you're the first person I think I've interviewed that's a social type 2 ESFJ. So like, hey, yeah,
Yeah.
there you go, guys. This Savannah is
Woo!
she's like
I'm number 2.
at number 2. You know what? I think most number twos like being a number 2. They don't mind, It's
Yeah,
like,
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it.
yeah,
My head's not on the chopping block, but I'm not just so into whatever that I'm not motivated. I'm right in the middle in the sweet
right.
spot, and I like it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. All right. Well, take care and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. It was nice talking to you.
You too. All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.